I fixed him a bowl of soup and a sandwich, passed it across the counter to him and said, "So what's going on with your week this week?" And he couldn't get past, So I reached across the counter and said, "And we're done eating. I want you to put a jacket and shoes on. I think we need to go to the ER." CT scan came back and the ER physician came in the room and said, "We're seeing something more than a stroke here." After the surgery, he had radiation and oral chemo until the middle of October when his tumor came back. Then had surgery again the first week of November and then started intra-arterial chemo until end of March when again your tumor came back.
He was an accountant. He worked his way all the way up to managing partner of his firm. He's an incredibly smart guy. Each recurrence of tumor stole a little more from his short-term and working memory functions.
Yeah.
Needs a lot of re-reminding.
Yeah, that's true.
Dad was a big golfer, so there was some mandatory golfing.
Dad and I would either go hit balls, or he would sit and coach me, or we would just do some putting.
He can still putt.
I can still putt.
Before he had this tumor removed, he had a headache that lasted a week, and it was really painful. And he would sit on the couch just kind of crying, and I had taken him in 3 times that week. And so Dr. Inman got us in for an MRI on that Wednesday. He said, "I'm sorry, Finny has a really large, mass in his cerebellum, and they're waiting for you down at Children's." They described it as, bigger than a golf ball, smaller than a baseball. Had been growing in there for some time, so his brain kind of adapted a bit. But then for whatever reason, in that last week, things kind of went haywire.
It was like Wednesday find out, surgery on Friday, rehab, we were released the following Friday and we were back home. It was just amazing. I think there was a point in his life where he thought dizzy was the normal. I can tell the difference just in his coordination and his ability to get out there and play.
He's always wanted to be a goalie. And so he's had the confidence now knowing that his coordination is better. He's actually a good goalie.
I feel like my
She just
mom gets a little more worried when he says like his head hurts or something.
As I'm a mother, I worry, that's my job. And he's always like, "Mom, it's gone. Dr. Naguib said it's gone." Or if I say, "Finny has a brain tumor," he's like, "Mom, I had a brain tumor." He's certain this thing's not coming back.
Day of the retirement party, John called me and he said, "Something weird has just happened."
He just gave me a call about 2 o'clock in the afternoon to say, "Hey Kirk, do you want to get together and talk?" As we were having the conversation, it was clear that John was really not there. Ultimately, it came to the point and said, "John, just let me give you a ride home."
We were sitting in the emergency room, waiting to get the results of the MRI, and a whole team of neurologists came into this little space and said, "Mr. Yeager, you've got a concerning abnormality in your brain." And it was just, this can't be real. He was retiring. We were going to go away and just relax and then think about all the things we wanted to do next.
It felt very unfair. It was shocking, of course. And yet John didn't miss a beat. John said, "Okay, now what do we do?"
It never felt that it was like a death sentence right off the bat because of how optimistic he was.
But it was always kind of path forward. Here's what's happening next. Here's what we're doing. And this might be the next thing that works for me.
Part of John's history and I think reputation with Cargill was the images that are hung around the walls of Cargill, and his skills with the camera and his ability through those skills to see things, to see the environment, to see people, to see business in different ways was truly one of his gifts.
He is the perfect picture of someone who lived life to the fullest.
Yeah.
I mean, he traveled the world, he married the love of his life, he had a great family, was so well respected in his career and just taught us so much.
He told me just after his diagnosis that, I don't have a bucket list. because I've done everything I've wanted to do. What matters to me now are the people that I care about.
John was able to say goodbye to everybody, and I think that's so special, even though his time came way too quick.
He knew how to make the journey, and he made the final one in the best way.
Wylie was born in July, and shortly thereafter that I started having like throbbing pressure in my head. Not a headache, it was more like this, like throbbing. So I just went into my regular primary care doctor, and she thankfully sent me for an MRI. But because it had been there for so long, it was like intertwined with my cerebellum. So with surgery, they're gonna have to remove most of my cerebellum with the tumor. It was the surgeon who told us that after surgery, pretty much life as I knew it would be over. I would be walking with a cane or a walker. I have some slowness on the left side, but you looking at me, you would never notice.
They didn't get all of it, so I mean, we still go down and get MRIs and deal with it.
I decided, since I was doing so phenomenally well, that I should do something kind of to give back. So we decided on Bowling for Brains. So just to bring people together in a positive environment is an amazing thing. Now, going back to see Dr. he always says, "You don't look like a patient anymore," which is phenomenal to hear.
The most memorable part of the brain tumor is when they cut my hair.
I mean, he really did not like that they were messing with his hair.
When all of a sudden we hear him screaming, so we ran in and he was just getting his hair shaved off. Yeah, he screamed like they were cutting his leg off or something. Yes. Yeah, they cut it, so I cried.
I'd like to give him a crew cut, but
Never is gonna happen. He'd love it to be longer.
He does have good hair. I have a super high pain tolerance, I will tell you that.
She tolerates me, so that's...
I think the funniest one was when Tim Anderson came in after Dad's first surgery. He had staples across his head like this. And he said, "Hey, Bill, oh look, they installed a zipper."
I always referred to Susan as my dear wife. It was never just Susan.
Either he called me sweetheart or he called me babe. If he called me Susan, that meant there was a problem. Fortunately, that didn't happen a whole lot.
My mom would stay all day and take care of Wylie, and she was my toughest therapist. Most times when Chad came home, I was kind of glad to see him and know that her shift was over, because then it was the easy part of the night.
He really started serious swimming when he was in high school. Swimmers wear Speedos, but I got used to them. That was normal swimwear for him. But the girls might have other stories about the Speedos.
We've tried to block it out of our memory, but
he, I mean, growing up, that's just, we thought all dads wore Speedos, and that was just kind of normal. And then I think as we hit our teen years, we're bringing friends around the house and realized that was not normal.
You know, it's a nice reminder that life is short and the fact that you aren't guaranteed anything. I do think that's a great lesson for my kids to learn.
Not to say that there aren't times that are very, very emotional and heartbreaking, but you accept them and pick yourself up and keep going.
You need to adapt and be flexible and be open. And that's the only way to get through.
You do what you can do, I guess.
He would be so glad, I think, that his story is being told for an important purpose. And that is to bring attention to brain cancer, to bring attention to the need to find treatment.
Raising the money is incredible because there needs to be research to find a cure.
We're just touching the tip of the iceberg in understanding the brain.
My grandmother had a brain tumor 16 years ago. Her experience was completely different, but you know, she'd didn't have an MRI in her operating suite either.
The equipment, the medications being used, the combinations of medications being used has grown and changed so much, and those sorts of things wouldn't happen without research and without funding and without committed, dedicated people that want to make it better for themselves, for us, for everyone affected by this disease.
I hope that someday no other families have to go through this.
Even though in a way it makes different families stronger, it's made us closer having to deal with it. At the same time, if we could be stronger without having to do that, that would be great.
I just want there to be hope that when someone is diagnosed with this, it's not a life sentence.
Through his illness and his death, he showed incredible grace. He knew he was going somewhere good. I mean, that's the biggest gift he could have ever given us.
My hope is to help him to enjoy whatever time he has, whether it's, 2 more months or 22 more years. Today is going to be what it's going to be, but we can find the good in it and make whatever it is a good day.